I just did a video on family financial communication. There is one financial communication within family and even with perhaps with friends, which is never had, which is very important. If somebody is running errands for me, in the sense that my mother is in a different place and somebody else is looking after her for a short period, maybe 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, or I have to call a cousin and for some work, call him in from some work for some other from other place for whatever reason, my personal work, it is absolutely necessary that I should offer them money. So what is this context? The context is very simple. A friend has staying in Bombay. He's got an uncle staying in Pune, and his aunt has died. So he goes to visit his uncle quite often, and he has to run some small errands, which he does. It's never an issue. But the uncle's son, who is in US, who comes once in 3.8 years, calls up and dictates what he should be doing. That you should be admitting him in this hospital, not in this hospital. Remember, he's not a sibling, and even siblings don't like this dictatorship kind of a thing. You sit in US and you tell people what is to be done in this third world country. So this guy actually runs errands, and he spent 20 days, yes, 20 days staying with his uncle in Pune because his aunt has died. And his son doesn't want to come to India to look after his father or anything, but he wants to dictate terms from there. He does not even offer him the petrol cost, the stay cost, or anything. Of course, now he earlier used to stay in a hotel whenever he went for a day or two. But uncle has a big house, so he moved into that house for 20 days to look after him. But there is a lot of thank you. Oh my God, how will I thank you, etc. But the one way to thank is by giving out a decent amount of cash. Another thing that I am not liking with the earlier generation, and earlier generation means people who are 75 and above, is they think it is their right to stay at home. It is their duty of their children to look after them in their old age. Now this is fine as long as you are, as long as you don't need too much attention. But here, when somebody gets bedridden, they are absolutely loath to going to a geriatric care center. I think, forget what has happened to the generation who is above 75. The next generation, people who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, whoever is willing to listen, is you should make a choice of going to a senior citizen home at 70. When I say 70, I mean, because what can happen, I mean, I've seen this happening with with people close to me. At 70, if you start having dementia, it becomes a nightmare for your spouse to look after you. It could be if the husband is say 70, and I'm assuming that the wife is 5-6 years younger, say 65, and the husband has a problem, it is very difficult for this 65-year-old to look after this 70-year-old. So then there is, but there is resistance. Oh, how can we go to a senior citizen home? We have to live here. This is a big house. We can stay here. I'll come to the costing part of it in a minute. Resistance is very many. One is, what will people say? Look, your daughter is abroad. She is not willing to come to look after you. So you might as well shift to a senior citizen home and a geriatric care center. No. See, we have accepted a creche, right? So if my wife has to work and I have to work and I have a 3-year-old kid, I go and leave her in a creche. There is absolutely no stigma to it now. Because I know some kids who have grown up in a daycare and who are now 60 years of age. So this was accepted maybe 40 years back, 45 years back, 50 years back. A creche was accepted, but senior citizen home and geriatric care is still not accepted. We still don't like it. So we expect our parents, our children, our siblings, our nephews and nieces to come and stand by us and do the work as if it is their duty. It may be their duty, maybe some of them will do it, but I think many will not do it. If you have one kid and that kid is abroad, I mean, you made the choice, right? That kid wants to be abroad and you don't want to be abroad. You cannot go abroad, they cannot come here. Why can't you live in a senior citizen home? Sir, senior citizen home is very expensive. They're asking for 75,000, they're asking for 80,000. That's too much, we can't afford. This is absolute bullshit argument. This looks very expensive because the people around you are not charging for their time. So if your son-in-law who is earning 80 lakhs per annum comes and stays with you to look after you, you don't cost it. So you think, oh, that's free because I don't have to pay. Second, you have zero cost for the house in which you live, right? Because if you were to live in that house, you would pay maybe 50,000 rupees as rent or 75,000 rupees as rent, but you're not willing to cost it when you go to a senior citizen home. It is going to cost you some rent. So you suppose you have to go to a senior citizen home which costs 90,000 and you can rent out your house for 50,000-60,000 rupees. Then what you're incrementally paying is only 30,000, which you're perhaps incurring here also, because if you have got two maids, if you've got a nurse, if you've got somebody to come and clean your house, if you've got a cook, put together all those costs, you will be definitely exceeding 90,000 rupees if you understand costing and if you know how to attribute time cost to the people around you. If you think all their time is free, then it's a completely different matter, right? If you think your daughter-in-law flying in from US to look after you for 3 months, the ticket was free, and her loss of pay during that period is not to be taken into account, then of course everything will look expensive. But to say things are expensive is wrong, simply because you are not attributing any rent to the place where you live. So give your house on rent, take that rent and set it off against this. That way you will know that the cost is not too high. Second, if you don't have anybody to look after you, don't expect your elder brother, younger brother, older sister, younger sister, nephew, niece and all to come and help you. Even your children are not willing to help you, or you have some amazing justification why your son can't come, because you remember this, right? We are a rationalizing animal. So you say, oh no, he can't come, he's changed his job, my daughter-in-law is a doctor, she's very busy in the hospital, she can't come, and those children are growing up, no, so 17-year-old, we can't leave them alone and come here to look after me. So my son can't come, my daughter-in-law can't come, my grandchildren can't come, nobody can come. But I expect my brother's son who is staying nearby to come and look after me, and I will not offer any money for that, right? I think this is very selfish and amazing, but it is very common in Indian households. So why am I relating to this to another video which I made about financial communication? It's very simple. Learn to do your costing properly. Then living in senior citizen home or living in your own house is not very different from a cost point of view if you cost everything, including the rent which is being foregone by you. Then actually go and implement it. So if you're in your 60s, you don't have to buy it now. You can buy it when you're 70, when you're moving in, because you may move in at 74. When I say 70, I just mean stage in life when staying alone becomes very difficult, not impossible, right? So if your wife can't go to the shop regularly to buy, and she's got some problem, you have some problem, you cannot walk around so comfortably, or you have dementia, so your wife can't even take bath properly because she's afraid that you will walk out of the house. All these things happen. Don't sit in a ivory tower and say it will not happen to me. Don't assume that bad things happen to others and only good things happen to me. No, these things do happen, right? I've seen these things happen. Every video of mine, and I have 2,000 odd videos, I've given examples, and every example, I would have wanted to say every bloody example, is true. I may have changed the names, I may have changed the locations, but whatever has happened is true. It is, people are expecting that children also expect that their parents to pay for all their education, higher education, higher education, right? So you pay for my MBBS, you pay for my MS, you pay for my MD, you pay for my DM, you still continue to pay rent, right? My stipend is 50,000, I need it. Apart from that, you please pay for the rent and the location where I stay. These things are expensive. Please understand, some parents can't afford. If they have to remove all this money from their PF or from their investments, understand that money for their retirement will be short, right? So then it is your duty to repay. So if you are a person on whom your parents have spent money and you have no idea of whether your parents need the money, take my hint, they need the money, right? And if you are a parent who's saying no, I can't afford old age home, you're fooling yourself, because you're trying to save and create money for a kid who is not even going to look back at the money. He or she is not even looking at you. Do you think they're so interested in your money? If they are, bad luck for them. But I think by the time you go, you should have spent all your money in the way that you wanted to. Not saying, oh, I need to leave some money for my son. I know people do amazingly foolish things. I know a person living in a building without any lift or anything. Son has a house which is given on rent, and to which this man also contributed. Now, can there be something more foolish than this? So I've seen such cases. So I'm telling you, first start communicating about money within the house. Learn to live on your own, and when you can't live on your own, try to go to an assisted living. So 70 to 85 you live in assisted living, where somebody will come and change your light bulb, or maybe fill in a bank application, any of those things. 85 onwards you may need geriatric care, where there will be somebody to change your bedpan and give you a sponge bath or whatever is needed to be looked after. Because when you are 85, we've been assuming that you're a male 85 and your wife is 80. You don't expect an 80-year-old diabetic with arthritis to be able to run around looking after an 85-year-old with similar or worse ailments, right? It's time that we planned our old age. It's time we planned how we will want to live and act accordingly. You don't need to buy a property today. You can buy a property 1 week before you want to move in. There is no great hurry. But plan, say, okay, this age to this age, I want to live with these people, therefore this city, this is how I'm going to live. There is a senior citizen home where 2 of my cousins and 3 of my classmates, elder brothers are there. So I'm going to live in this community. Geriatric care, you may have less control. You may have to live in the place where your children reside. Whatever it is, sit with your children, decide and plan all that. Just like you plan for your education, you plan for your career, you plan for your marriage, you need to plan for your retirement. And retirement is in many stages: 60 to 70, 70 to 80, 80 to 90, 90 plus 90 to end of life, right? So each stage is very different. This is like a T20 match, right? The first 6 overs, then 6 overs, and the next 8 overs. This is how you plan, right? So exactly like that, your 60 to 70 may be very different. You may be able to do everything yourself. 70 to 80, you may want to simplify your portfolio dramatically. You may be worried that if my wife goes away, I've got to make all these changes administratively, so let me simplify my portfolio. Whatever it is, start thinking, start planning, involve your kids, make sure that you're on the right path. Thank you.